Yes, it's true. My name is Jim Miller. I had the privilege to be married to Cheryl Miller for almost 19 years. I will tell you about our odyssey on two levels. One, as we dealt with MS, and then when we found out what really worked. For the next 7 years, we did everything we could. We took all the standard precautions. She used all the standard drug therapies and rehabilitation services that were available. Cheryl took baclofen, she took transine, she took Dantrium, which she had to stop taking because it was destroying her liver. She took steroid shots, which she had to stop taking because they were having a bad effect. And with all the drugs that are called satisfactory alternatives, still to this day, they weren't satisfactory. Cheryl had chronic progressive MS, not relapsing remitting, which might be called the easier, the better kind, the kind you have a chance with because you have good and bad moments, exacerbations and remissions. With chronic progressive, it's a downward slide that by 1991 had her neurologist so worried, he sat us down and said, I don't know that you're going to make it back here in 6 months, which is a scary proposition for a doctor to be that honest, which we appreciate. But I found out about the same time that MS might have be benefited by using marijuana for spasticity. Cheryl had great tightness, not the tremor spasticity, just a tightness that was very much preventing range of motion that needs to be done on a patient that cannot move and cannot stretch themselves. With what I knew and what I'd heard about marijuana, I could have asked Cheryl, how does it work for you? But she obeyed all of the laws. She never smoked marijuana. She never used marijuana. People wonder, why did I marry somebody like that? And I'd always joke and say more for me, but the truth is it didn't matter, obviously. I went home and I went to a friend's house who I knew could help, and we made a batch of brownies, something I'd never done, and it was ½ an ounce of California's Best, so I knew it was going to work. We cut it into 16 squares. I went back the next day and I said, look, I'm coming every night. I want Cheryl to be comfortable. She has a little quirk. She likes to eat brownies for breakfast, at least until Friday when you release her, because you can't work on her. Would you give her brownies? Are they on the menu? And of course they were. And I said, well, lucky for us, I brought some of her brownies, and they would give her a brownie with her breakfast, not knowing what it was. So she tried a brownie and I tried a brownie, because as any good healthcare person should do, you don't give something like that to a patient without first having somebody try it, and I volunteered to be a guinea pig along with her. I didn't feel terribly high, but I could tell it was working, and I could see from her that they were in for a surprise the next day. I stayed home from work that Wednesday now. I got a call at 12 o'clock, Mr. Miller, could you come down tonight a little early? Everything's fine, don't worry, but could you come down before 4 o'clock? I'm thinking, sure I can. It's coincidentally when the rehab room closes. I got there about 3. They led me in. They were bubbling. They said, look what we've got here. And her arms were loose, her legs were loose, and I wanted to tell them, but it flashed by me. I can't tell them. I can't tell them what it is that's working. They might want to know, but I couldn't risk having to be discharged earlier than Friday as opposed to staying. So I just said, you people are amazing. My God, you are the best. Whatever could this be? And I became an activist. At that moment, people ask each other, when did you become an activist? And I decided that I would never again keep quiet. And I've pretty well fulfilled that. And Cheryl decided, well, if they want to arrest me, let's go to Washington, they can arrest me. We went there in 1998, and aided by the Marijuana Policy Project, fledgling as they were, they knew this was something they could help with. And Cheryl ate marijuana in Congressman Jim Rogan's office. I helped her. I broke off a piece. It was visible, and there was more press than I'd ever seen for anything, and more police than I'd ever seen for anything related to me. It went rather well. We did get arrested for the first time in our lives. What was amazing was I didn't see it coming, but when they went to fingerprint Cheryl, well, they couldn't because her fingers were too tight, too much spasticity. And she said, you know, if I had my muffin, you'd be able to fingerprint me. She wasn't being sarcastic, she was just telling them how it was. And then I opined, isn't that something? The drug laws are making it hard for you to do your job. Maybe we should change them so you can fingerprint people that don't have enough of their medicine. The MS Society was also in the press after that issuing an opposite point of view. And that's when I started to notice that there was always the opposite point of view from the MS Society. Cheryl also, we gathered with our Commando Squad members, Jackie and Gary, at Bob Barr's office a year later. She decided maybe she'd lay down in somebody's office doorway that was walking all over patients and see if he wanted to walk all over her. Well, he didn't, but the police didn't mind so much. I was arrested, she wasn't. Made the papers, the MS Society said there's not enough research, we can't recommend it. I wanted to read a quote from Cheryl. When I was arrested at Bob Barr's office, they had plenty of time to interview her, and the Associated Press ran a story the next day simply saying, Mrs. Miller said she risked arrest by participating in the civil disobedience because I'm already in pain. I'm imprisoned in my body. It's deteriorating and I can't do anything. At least marijuana relieves my pain. How could people not react to that? But the MS Society didn't. They said, still not enough studies. The last story done in Cheryl's lifetime in February in the Asbury Park Press, Sunday, February 2003. However, the National MS Society's Medical Advisory Board says it does not recommend marijuana as a treatment for MS because the studies did not provide convincing evidence that marijuana benefits people with MS. They still aren't asking people with MS. They're still relying on convicted murderers for their information. And I don't know why we're letting them do that. I've picketed them with Cheryl at their Mid-Jersey office. I go hand that information at the MS walks they have. I was bounced from the last one about 5 weeks ago for handing out this information, told to take her memorial wheelchair and vacate the premises. When Cheryl passed, there wasn't enough time for people to go to New Jersey or Oklahoma where the two services were. So there was a very nice memorial in September. Well, she planned to be here in September, and in a way she was. A lot of MS patients made the trip. Normal did a good job of taking the lead amongst many other groups that all did participate for the first time together, which was something that we always wanted, and that they would do this for Cheryl's memorial. It was a landmark. And I'm hoping it got the ball rolling because I've seen a lot more cooperation amongst reform groups that traditionally have not cooperated. They're finding out we can do this. We kind of like each other personally. Let's get along and do it. The patients didn't want to let it go, though. They didn't want to go home. We had some ideas, formed the Multiple Sclerosis Patients Union. There's a website, drugsense.org/MSPU. We're a fledgling organization dedicated to being an answer to the MS Society's answer, that the patients can have a say, and we're going to give it to them. But we need help. We need people not to be asked to help. I need people here that know they can do something to help this MS Patients Union. I need you to get in touch and say what it is you think you can do to help. We need that very much, and that's what you can do to help stop the MS Society from operating the way they do. They do a lot of good stuff, but there's a concerted effort to keep this from happening. There's no next session for Cheryl. We can't wait for a next session. We have to do these things immediate, and we have to make it important, and the healthcare issue that is, and not let anybody else reframe the debate. We have to make it so those patients that are out of time, at least they're out of time with the medicine they need. And I hope you all get active in helping the MS Patients Union. Call the MS Society if you got the credentials. I know some of you do. Let them know what they're doing's wrong. Go to their website, and if you haven't taken issue with them, take issue with them. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jim.